Hello and welcome back to another Warcraft video. This time it is going to be about Transmog in patch 5.4, and there are about 6 new different sets you can get. 5 of these are from the Timeless Isles, and they're pretty much just the 496 things, and then the last is, well, the first one I'm going to cover is pretty much the coolest one of them all in my opinion, and is the Kor'Kron Dark Shaman set, which drops from the Siege of Orgrimmar. So, let's get into it. First we have the Kor'Kron Dark Shaman. This drops from the Kor'Kron Dark Shaman mobs in the Siege of Orgrimmar, and also the Kor'Kron Dark Shaman boss. So we're saying Kor'Kron Dark Shaman quite a lot here, and this is, well, it's shaman gear, so of course it's just really, you know, ripping the head off a wolf, putting it in your own head, but I think it looks very cool. I like the sort of warm tones of the whole thing. It actually looks really cozy. I mean, look how much damn fur they have. It's great. But I just think this has a great aesthetic. And I like the way that, you know, it's Dark Shaman, so it does look kind of militaristic, but it still looks quite shamanistic to me, which is why I like it. I think it's better than a lot of other shaman pieces, and I actually think it is miles better than the tier 16 shaman piece. I think, and you know, one of my subscribers pointed this out as well quite a while back, but I think they need to start designing sets around the class and not the tier. Because this is an example of a set that, okay, it's from the tier, but it is really designed around the shaman class when you look at it. And compare that to, say, the tier 16 shaman, it doesn't really look like shaman gear. And I know the merits of designing them around the raid, but still, I think it's best to design around the class. Now, let's get into the Timeless Isle stuff. So there's 5 different ones. There's Cloud Scorcher, Crane Feather, Ordon, Crimson Scale, and Cliffbreaker. So let's start it off with Cloud Scorcher. It kind of looks like a traditional sort of Chinese dress, or at least a sort of Disneyland, you know, fantasy version of it. It's got a pretty cool little head, helm thingy, which I think is nice. And overall, just nice color palette. I think it looks pretty cool. I'm not really sure what class it works the best on. I'd say like a mage. It doesn't look very warlockish. It looks a little bit too happy to be a warlock, but hey, it's cool. Now the next one is the Crane Feather gear, and this is leather agility, so it's for the rogues. Now, I think the helm looks pretty crap, so I wouldn't really recommend taking that. It looks more like a kind of cap, if you know what I mean. But the actual armor itself, now, I know it doesn't scream, oh wow, that's flashy, but that's the reason I like it. If you don't want rogue gear that glows or has big ridiculous outcroppings, this is just, I suppose, a solid piece of armor. I don't think it's that spectacular looking, and there are better rogue sets, but if you just want up-to-date gear that's pretty, you know, good texture quality and stuff, that looks half decent and is not ridiculous to sort of bring you out the immersion of playing a rogue, then I think that this is a pretty good one. Next up we have Ordon, and this is male intellect. And it's very, well, it's pretty much Mogu style, but what it reminds me of is kind of like that terracotta army sort of style of armor, which I suppose is a lot of what the Mogu are based on. I think it's really cool. I don't really like the color scheme of this one. There's a better one coming up, which I think is a much nicer scheme. But if you want armor that actually just looks like your guy is a sort of a military, you know, like a military sort of character, I think this looks pretty good, because it does look like a solid piece of, you know, of armor. You can see the different platings and stuff. It looks pretty sort of time period appropriate for the sort of whole China theme. Now the next one is my favorite of them all, and it's Crimson Scale. This is the agility DPS one. Ranged, well, it's basically Contra gear, let's be honest. And I think this looks really cool. I think the gold and red is just perfect. I think I love it. You know, when you look at the different colors and stuff, it feels like a piece of gear. And more importantly, like if you compare this to our currently absolutely ridiculously retarded piece of hunter gear that we have for tier 16, which, by the way, it's pretty much, you look like a crossbreed between 343 Guilty Spark from Halo and the Geth from Mass Effect, which is rather bizarre in your fantasy MMORPG. I think this just looks great. It looks like you are a soldier in an army. Maybe you're like an honor guard or something. I just think it looks fantastic. And finally we have Cliffbreaker. This is a plate DPS one, so for the warriors and the death knights, and I just think this looks great. You see, if you're a warrior, well, on my warrior, if I didn't have my completely badass onslaught transmog set, I'd be going for this instead of the tier 16, because the tier 16 is just fucking, it's lights everywhere. I mean, it's like the horns of half of the barons sellotaped onto the thing, and then they just sort of put a whole bunch of the leftover Christmas lights all over it, so it's glowing. It looks so stupid, but this just looks like a solid piece of armor with a nice stylized helmet. Okay, the helmet might not suit your own personal tastes, but it certainly will for someone. So yeah, there we go, quick little look. Now this gear is obtained by a bunch of interesting things, which include the Timeless Isle, getting coins. When you kill monsters, they drop coins. You can use the coins to buy a Timeless Armor Cache, which will drop sort of a random main armor piece. You can also get the various kinds of like armor tokens out of rare chests and drops off mobs. If you want a full video on the Timeless Isle, just look in my channel. My Timeless Isle guide will be up there. It should be quite easy to find. It did get like 11,500 views and climbing, thankfully. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that perhaps if you're a little bit underwhelmed with what tier 16 offers to your class, that maybe some of this gear would suit your taste a bit better. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.